What is going on, guys? So, despite it being the spooky season, I watched a new film the other day that has nothing to do with horror. It stars Billy Eichner, and I know he has writing credits in this movie. And I know a lot of people were talking about this one when it first came out, and I decided to give it a watch now that it's available on streaming. And the film I'm going to be talking about today is Bros. Bros is directed by Nicholas Stoller. Two men with commitment problems attempt a relationship. So that's a pretty simplistic description, but it really does sum up the film pretty well. So you're introduced to Billy Eichner's character, Bobby, who has this podcast. He's a seemingly very popular guy who is in his 40s, who hasn't had a relationship, and he kind of pokes fun at himself about it. He's never really been in this committed relationship before. He goes to a club one night and he meets Aaron, played by Luke Macfarlane. And the two of them sort of hit it off, and the film kind of follows the trajectory of their relationship, and it's kind of a will they, won't they scenario as to whether or not their relationship will succeed, while at the same time Billy Eichner is trying to open the first LGBTQ History Museum, and it's really important to him. He works with all these people who there's a lot of familiar faces on the panel. Their conversations are pretty ridiculous and funny, and the entire film is them trying to get the money and the funding to get that fully functioned and open, while Billy Eichner is trying to have this relationship. So this film got a lot of mixed reviews, and I know Billy Eichner himself was pretty upset about how this film performed in the box office. And I know Billy Eichner is one of those people who you either love him or hate him. I really enjoy his comedy. I think he's a pretty funny guy. I've always enjoyed his Billy on the Street segments. I think that he's just really over the top and funny in the best way possible. I also like the self-awareness of his comedy and just kind of how overblown it is, and also his knowledge of pop culture and how he incorporates that into his comedic delivery, something I've always appreciated. And I liked this movie for the most part. I think it starts off incredibly rocky because I feel like what he was trying to do at the beginning was take a lot of his Billy on the Street persona and those jokes and try to translate it into a screenplay, and it doesn't necessarily come across the same way in a comedic delivery in the screenplay as it does when he's doing kind of on the street and just like delivering these lines to random strangers. And so at the beginning of the film I was a little bit uncertain, and this film has almost a 2-hour runtime, which I will say is another complaint that I have. It's a little bit too bloated to where it feels like it could have been trimmed down in the writer's room. But once we get introduced to these two characters and we start to understand their backgrounds a little bit more and see their relationships together, it really becomes charming and enjoyable. And I really enjoyed about the entire second half of the film. I felt like the chemistry between Bobby and Aaron's characters was really great. I feel like a lot of the problems that were introduced felt much more real world than it did like on a bloated, typical romantic comedy level. It really felt more subdued and realistic in that regard. They still have that over-the-top comedic moments because it's Billy Eichner and he's not going to pull back from who he is as a person, which I can totally 100% respect in this. And I feel like it was really cool to see a film of this caliber where it's just portraying a gay relationship in a very normal light. And we don't get a lot of these movies, and so I can understand, when Billy Eichner made some statements about like being upset about straight audiences not seeing these films. As a member of the LGBTQ community myself, seeing these types of films with representation are really important, and I think we need more of these types of films. Not every single film about the LGBTQ community needs to be like an art house masterpiece. They can be subdued romantic comedies to where people can just go to the theater and watch a movie about two gay people and it just be completely normal. There's a really great conversation in this film that Billy Eichner talks about, and I wonder how much of it is real world, about his parents taking him to a stage performance when he was 12 that was an all-gay cast, and the things that he was exposed to when he was younger and how that impacted him in his adult life, seeing that and being exposed to something and normalizing those gay relationships from a very early age. And I thought the stuff like that in the movie was really great. There were obviously some hokier moments, some like beat you over the head, like it's almost like a preaching to the choir thing, because I feel like a lot of the audience that's seeing this movie is probably aware or care about LGBTQ issues, which you hope that someone that maybe not affiliated with that would watch this movie and get something out of it. But some of the dialogue is a little hokey, which took me out of it a little bit. The third act, some of the stuff about the museum was a little ridiculous, which I understand was trying to be there for a comedic punch, but it didn't all necessarily work. But as far as a love story and like a grounded love story, there's a lot of really great moments in this and some really good dialogue sequences that I really appreciated that were a lot more nuanced than you see in a typical romantic comedy. And I think that by the third act, I was smiling. I enjoyed myself through this movie. I thought there was a lot of poignant commentary on just queer culture in general, how queer people are perceived, how different segments of the queer community are perceived, and that was really cool to see portrayed on screen. As far as like cinematography and direction, Nicholas Stoller hasn't really done a whole lot in his career that I've been really impressed with. The cinematography is relatively flat, nothing super impressive, but it's a romantic comedy. You're not really looking for an art house film style shot selection in this, but I will say that I thought that the way that the relationships were conveyed and the way that especially the relationship between Bobby and Aaron's characters were conveyed was done really well. And I enjoyed this for the most part, and I think that if you're looking for a fun and enjoyable romantic comedy, that you'll enjoy this one. There's enough in it to like. I just wish they would have trimmed it down a little bit. It's a little bit too long. So have you seen Bros? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really entertaining. It's not the best romantic comedy I've ever seen, but it was still really enjoyable. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.